Understanding ADHD, turning disadvantages into advantages. How much information were you given about ADHD when your child was first diagnosed? If it was anything like my experience, probably not a lot. We were basically given a diagnosis and shown the door, and it was left to me to find out what this ADHD thing was all about. Of course, as a parent, you'll be very aware of the key traits of ADHD: inattention, distraction, perhaps hyperactivity, perhaps impulsivity, lack of concentration, poor organisational skills, bad memory, etc. Over the course of this programme, we'll be looking at ways for you and your child to manage the challenges of ADHD. However, there are also some good things about ADHD, if you manage it the right way. I'm not going to tell you ADHD is a gift, as some people say. Ask my son what he thinks of having ADHD, and he'll tell you that he would get rid of it in a shot if he had the chance. But with the right support, you can actually turn some of the disadvantages of ADHD into advantages. Not sure what I mean? Okay, here are 10 big problems that ADHD kids often have and how they can actually become advantages. Inattention. Kids with ADHD nearly always find it really difficult to pay attention to stuff that doesn't motivate them. But what this actually means is that when they find something that really grabs their attention, they can do it forever. If your child loves playing computer games like Minecraft, for example, you'll know exactly what I mean. They can play for hours and hours, but not stay focused on maths homework for more than 5 minutes. The trick here is to use this ability to hyper-focus to good effect. Get your child involved in lots of different activities and find the ones that they're passionate about, and then support them to focus on those as much as they can. Whether it's making music, or dancing, or filmmaking, or sport, being able to hyper-focus is a huge advantage. In fact, Olympic champion gymnast Lewis Smith, who has ADHD, credits his success on his ability to hyper-focus in training. Distraction. Many kids with ADHD are easily distracted, not just by the stuff that's going on around them, but also by their own thoughts. They'll be lost in their own little world or away with the fairies, that kind of thing. And that's not good when they're meant to be focusing on what you're telling them, or on the history teacher, or their swimming teacher. But what it does mean is that kids with ADHD often think more creatively. They think in different ways, they think out of the box, and they can come up with really quirky ideas that no one else has. There are plenty of famous painters and writers who are thought to have had ADHD, or at least ADHD-like tendencies, and even Albert Einstein was thought to be an ADHDer. So while it's important for your child to try and focus in class, do give them time to be dreamy and encourage them to tell you about their crazy ideas. Hyperactivity. Is your child the one who's always on the go, running round, talking too quickly, never running out of energy? It's draining, isn't it? But while the negative side of hyperactivity, the jumping up and down, the tapping, the squirming and so on, can be really annoying, when all that excess energy is channeled in the right way, kids can achieve amazing things. If you let them, they're the ones who will last longer at football training, who'll practice their dance routines for longer than anyone else. And because they do everything at double speed, they'll actually be able to get more done in less time, when they have the right support and when their energy is focused on the right things. Try setting your kids a challenge with a motivating prize. Who can put all their toys away first? I bet your child with ADHD will win. Impulsivity. Kids with ADHD often act without thinking, and this can be particularly challenging when they get angry and lash out at someone without thinking about the consequences. We'll be looking at how to deal with anger in week 4. But actually, that impulsivity can be quite refreshing. In our family, my daughter, the non-ADHD child, is the one who overthinks everything, finds all the potential obstacles, and quite often doesn't actually go through with a plan because she can see all the problems. My son, who has ADHD, is much more likely to jump straight into something without worrying about the difficulties he'll face along the way. He just deals with them when he gets to them. That means he's much more likely to take on new challenges or go to new places. Okay, being a risk taker like this can be dangerous. But if you help your child understand the risks and balance them against the potential outcomes, having ADHD can be a huge benefit in this way. You only have to look at Richard Branson to see where taking impulsive, calculated risks can get you. Lack of focus. Set a child with ADHD down with a book and tell them to read it, and they're likely to struggle. Focusing on one task and one task only is like wading through treacle to these kids. That's why TV, and especially computer games, are so much more popular. There's loads going on, there's audio as well as visual effects, there's lots of movement. The high intensity action of a computer game matches the action of the ADHD brain, where nothing is still for very long. But this lack of ability to concentrate on one thing at a time means kids with ADHD can become master multitaskers. Give them several things to work on and they'll find it a lot easier to switch from one to another and get stuff done than if they're only meant to be working on one project at a time. Low boredom threshold. I'm bored! How many times have your kids told you that? For kids with ADHD, they often have an even lower boredom threshold. It's like they constantly need to be doing something, and once they've done an activity for a short while, they want to move on to something else because it doesn't hold any interest for them anymore. But the plus side of this is that kids with ADHD are often very inquisitive. They'll ask lots of questions and find out everything they can about a topic before moving on to the next one. And so long as the topic is interesting enough, they can be very quick learners, especially if they're shown how to do something rather than told how to do it. Fearlessness. One of the big dangers of ADHD is that kids can be fearless. They just do things without spotting the downside, and that can get them into trouble. Perhaps they run across the road without looking first, or climb trees without thinking about falling down. But this fearlessness also means they can be very open to new experiences. They'll be more likely to try new things like surfing or coast-steering or rock climbing than their scaredy-cat friends. Adults with ADHD are often very successful when running their own businesses because they don't have the fear of making changes that most people have. Oversensitivity. Is your child oversensitive? Do they get upset easily, cry more than their friends, make more of a fuss about cut knees or name-calling? It can be very difficult to deal with, and you have to have the patience of a saint. But actually, children who are oversensitive are often really loyal, caring friends. Encourage them to manage their emotions, but acknowledge that sensitivity, because sensitive children grow up to be sensitive, caring, compassionate adults. So it's definitely something to be supported sensitively. Who knows, they could go on to be a star in the caring professions. No filters. One of the reasons people with ADHD get easily distracted is because they can't filter out all the unimportant stuff around them. In the classroom, kids will be well aware of the squeak of the hamster's wheel, the ticking of the clock, the smelly shoes of the child next to them, the colours on the posters on the wall, and that stops them from concentrating on their work. But this also means that when it matters, kids with ADHD are likely to be the ones that remember all the details. They're great to have around in a crisis because they'll often remember tiny details that no one else noticed, and that can make a real difference. Desire to control. Many kids with ADHD also have ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, and even without ODD, they often like to be in control. My own theory is that for a child with ADHD, the world is a chaotic place, so they take control of whatever they can to feel more grounded and secure. While the desire to control might be frustrating and hard to deal with when they're kids, it can mean they become fantastic leaders when they're older. So really, it's all about working with what you have and finding ways to find the positive in the negative. Here's an example for you from my own life of how many of these disadvantages can actually become advantages in the right circumstances. My son and I have recently been helping a local charity distribute supplies to the refugees at the camp in Calais. Our first trip was a long day, full of mixed emotions, and towards the end of the day many of the team members were flagging, both physically and mentally. We had lots more stuff to give out, but the team leaders simply didn't know where to begin. My son was still full of energy, so he stepped in and took on a leadership role. He'd been keeping track of which parts of the camp we'd already visited, and rather than getting involved in a long discussion, he quickly decided which bit we should head towards. He knew everyone was tired, and he let them know he cared. Then he came up with a new way of approaching people that worked really well. And he had no worries about doing things in a different way. His refreshing, energetic attitude motivated everyone to carry on with the good work we were doing. Result.